the point being that it's now, this is the first time I've created a program that I will put out to purchase prior to an appointment. So it will still contain appointments. I can't help myself. I like to see everyone. So when we think about what we're creating, where are we at? Are we at the stage where we're right at the beginning? Or is it we need to change up what we're doing? Is it that we need to think, I need to change how I work, restructure how I work, and put things together in a different way? Mentoring with Geraldine is a bite-sized practitioner podcast for naturopaths, nutritionists, herbalists, and practitioners, responding directly to the needs of a practicing natural therapist. With interviews, herbal discussions, something business, something clinical, you'll get the variety you need to enjoy and stay motivated in practice. So thanks for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for our episodes. If you'd like more support, get in contact, and I look forward to working with you soon. Hello, everyone, and welcome to Mentoring with Geraldine and the Bite Size Podcast, and carrying on with our current theme of the Q&A. So asking me those questions. So I've been looking more at the people in the 90-day program because it's giving me a broader discussion area. So by speaking about those people, because I'm seeing them 7 times, or I'm seeing them for VIP days. So we have 2 longer sessions where we get a lot done. And I get my VA to do some of the work so we can get stuff done as well. Now, when I'm working with people, whether they be newly qualified or whether they've been working for a long time as a naturopath, the question is always, where do I start? Now, where do I start is huge, isn't it? Because that can be as simple as tidying your bedroom. Where do I start? Shall I start by putting the clothes away from the wardrobe? Or shall I start by moving things off the dresser? Where do I start is a really big statement. But where do I start with my business might be where you're at right now. Where do I start with my program might be where you're at because you already have started your business and you already have clients. It might be, I need to change a bit. Where do I start with the creation of a package? So let's go back to the first one of those. Now, where do I start if I'm about to qualify? If I'm going to be in a year or 6 months, things like that. Well, where do we start there? Let's get that ABN sorted. Let's get that business name sorted. And if you've got a bit of time, you probably haven't got a lot of money, but you could actually be creating that website. So my very first website, I made myself. WordPress. I made a WordPress. It was all pretty much blog then. So I made myself a WordPress website. Then there's a bit of a story behind the first Highgate Proactive website, and that was back in the day. I mean, now my telephone, you can't phone me unless I have your phone number in my contacts. So on an iPhone, you can go into the background and unknown callers can just be stopped, and I love that feature. Now, but back in the day, I had to answer the phone every time, and it takes up a lot of time answering the phone. And I happened to be in the car, I was driving, and my son had answered the phone for me. And my children are very good. Over the years, they've got used to the phone ringing. They would answer it and they go utterly silent. And the hilarious thing is they'd be in the middle of an argument. They'd be in the middle of a conversation. The phone would ring and there'd be immediate silence. And the phone would go onto speaker and the child in the front seat would be holding it close and I would then be speaking and driving. So on this particular occasion, as you know, I'd created my first website. It was pretty awful, but I'd created it and I had my URL because that's the big thing. I'd got my business name and I'd bought my URL. And Google, the longer you've owned it, the more it trusts you. So I've got my business name, I've got my URL, I've got my ABN, I've got all of these background things. And it's an Indian company. And so the salesperson phones, but she couldn't say my name. It was hilarious. She was saying, she was saying all these different things. And so I was saying, oh, sorry, what was that? What was that? And getting her to repeat my name again and again and again. So eventually someone called Lefroy I was handed over to Lefroy. And then I thought, yeah, why not? Let's have the website. It was a couple of grand and they created my first website and they were actually writing blogs for me, which I had to correct, but I actually started doing some of those things. So that was my first, I guess, employing other people experience really. Then from there, I had that website for a long, long time. And then I paid a company a lot of money, $6,500 for a new website. And really, isn't that good? So I'm in the process of creating another one right now and upgrading because, of course, the time that someone spends on your website, we've got to keep upgrading. We've got to keep changing them. I was at a conference at the weekend and one of the speakers said, who's got the better retention? Is it a goldfish or is it a person? Because the person is only going to be on your website for a couple of seconds before they move on. So as they get older, they're slower to load. So time to make yet another one. Now you can be making your website like I did. You can make your own WordPress. You can get somebody else to do it. You can buy a template. There's all sorts of different ways of creating that website, but you do need a presence. And that's something, where do I start? That could actually be where you start, is creating that initial website. Now, we do like niching is really important when we niche. So where are we niching and what are we doing? One of the easiest things to do is make sure you've excluded the people you don't want to see. And these are things that we do visually. If you don't want to see, in my case, I don't see oncology clients. Now, if I were to put up pictures, the traditional picture everyone would recognize as an oncology client would be a white woman wearing a turban. Now, there's lots of other cultures that wear turbans when they have, for whatever reason, or when they're undergoing cancer therapy. But that is you look at that and you immediately think she's going through cancer. It's an ingrained image in our minds. So I make sure that I don't put those images on my website and on my social media because I don't want those people. So sometimes exclusion is easier than inclusion. So make sure you exclude when you're creating that website. So where do I start? Business name, ABN, and your website. Now, where do I start? I've been in business for a while. What about a program? What about a package? Now, programs and packages can a little bit interlace and interlink. So my programs contain appointments. So is it a program or is it a package? Really, we've got a bit of a question mark going on there. So let's just combine those two for the sake of a nice bite-sized podcast. So when we think about that program, what are we going to include in it? How long is it going to go for? And is it going to be course-based? Is it going to be lesson-based? Is it going to be downloads? How are we going to create the content and what is it going to be around? If it's going to be a package, then it contains more appointments and it might have a few bonuses and a few extras, but really it's about the appointments. So when we're thinking about our program, what's going to go in it? Remembering that you're used to studying, you're used to spending an hour in a lecture, 90 minutes in a lecture, something like that. But the general person on the street isn't. They're working in an office, they're used to maybe watching a movie, but that's a movie. That's not an educational session. In a movie, every few minutes, something's going to happen, a bomb's going to explode, a car's going to crash, whatever. Whereas you're going to be sitting there talking about maybe the thyroid or something. So we need to keep program content short, sweet, and to the point. We need to vary it a bit. We need to have different things happening within it, yes, and yet for it to be the same. So if you were to include yoga or in my case Pilates in it, there'd be a session every week and it can't be a 30-second piece or a 2-minute piece because you're not really going to get the Pilates or the yoga in those few seconds, are you? So we've got to think to ourselves, what am I going to put into it and how am I going to share it? Where should I start? So starting with the program is big picture. So it's not the small picture. Start with the program. Think, what would I put in it? What is it that I'm telling my clients all of the time? What am I getting them to do? What am I repeating? So what I say to people in my programs, in the graduate program or the 90-day program, I say record your appointments. And when I say record appointments, I'm actually interested in what the client is saying on this occasion. What you're interested is what you're saying. So you need to ask the client if it's okay to record it. Now, if you're doing Zoom and you're recording them anyway, it's no problem. You don't have to ask because it's already in your information that it's a recorded session. But for anything else, like for my hypnosis, I always record those, so it's not a big deal. But I'm doing all the talking, let's admit. But for this, you just need to ask your client, is it okay if we record the session? I'm recording me. I'm not recording you. It's all about, this is for my audit so that I can audit myself. And I will delete this recording within X length of time or by Friday, give a date. Then you verbally take their consent to the recording and then you get on and record. So you just do a voice record on your phone. All the phones have got a voice recorder, and if they haven't, you can download one free from the App Store. Then you go back and listen. So if you've recorded all your appointments for the day, you'll discover you say quite a lot. And then apart from saying quite a lot, you might discover that you're repeating the same things, especially if you've niched. You'll be saying the same things over and over and over in the day. So when I was seeing lots of children, I was saying exactly the same things about foods at every single appointment exactly the same thing about junk food at every single appointment. So I made myself up a PDF and I handed that out at every single appointment instead. So it saves you time, and it saves, the point of the program is to save you the time for the things you'd otherwise be repeating over and over. And for the client to understand that they don't have to see you for as many appointments because they're doing your program. Now, personally, I've always sold programs in the past like a supplement. I sell them during the consult. So I'm creating at the moment a program for my new website that I've just told you I'm making. And so that won't be sold. It'll be sold there as a program if someone wants to buy it. Whether or not anyone buys it, I don't know. I'd have to promote it probably. It's not going to sell itself like anything else. But the point being that it's now, this is the first time I've created a program that I will put out to purchase prior to an appointment. So it will still contain appointments. So I can't help myself. I like to see everyone. So when we think about what we're creating, where are we at? Are we at the stage where we're right at the beginning? Or is it we need to change up what we're doing? Is it that we need to think, I need to change how I work, restructure how I work, and put things together in a different way? So you have a think about that, and I hope you have an absolutely brilliant rest of day. Please do the nice things. Follow the podcast if you're not already doing so, and a nice review would be lovely if you've got a second. It's really easy to do on the device, on whichever system you're listening to me on. So have an absolutely brilliant rest of day, and I look forward to seeing you on the next podcast. Try. Thanks so much for joining me today. Don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe to the podcast for the weekly episodes. If you'd like even more support and learning, then the Academy is for you. Here you'll find part 2 of the herbal discussions, more clinical learning, and case studies to support your clients in practice. Bye for now.